would the Hawks have won if Trae Young had stayed healthy? Well, let me go first.
Go ahead, yeah, take it first.
Obviously, I already did say that I don't believe so because of the defense that Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker were throwing at him, and I believe that he eventually would have wore down eventually, and I do eventually think that he would have got tired, and I do think that they would have lost. I also think that, I just think that the Bucks had like a better system in order to beat the Bucks. Although Mike Budenholzer, he definitely does have his lapse as a coach. Sometimes, he could, make some bad decisions or bad adjustments. But I just think that this team was well equipped to win this series, and I also believe that Chris Middleton, he definitely stepped up, and he definitely just showed that he's a problem. So that's what it was for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think I can't add anything more to that. I think you summed it up perfectly.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to the following question. Next question is, who deserves more credit between Nate and Trae Young?
I would have to say Nate, because let's keep in mind, for as great as a run that Trae Young had, getting to as far as he did, the Hawks were 14-20 with this pretty much the same team. I don't really think they made any. I know they added Lou Williams to the deadline, so that's obviously a big get in terms of bolstering your squad. But when you look at everything that transpired with the Hawks, I mean, they were 14-20. They were destined to be a lottery team, and they fire Lloyd Pierce, and Nate comes in, and they're the 5 seed. They go on an incredible run. They play like 600 basketball the rest of the way, counting the postseason or close to it. I mean, how could you not give credit to McMillan? And that's not to say the players were bums and all of a sudden, voila, Nate McMillan just comes in. Now they're not bums anymore. Now they're stars. No, I mean, they always have the talent level, but it's up to the right coach. Kind of like the Knicks this year, right? The right coach has to come in and be the one to extract the most talent out of his roster. If it's a roster that's good enough. And obviously people look at the Hawks, and I know people that know them well and watch them regularly that live in the Atlanta area would tell you that they were good enough. But unfortunately, Lloyd Pierce was not the right coach to extract the most out of them. Nate McMillan was. And that's I'm not going to say the reason why, because obviously the players still got to play. You could draw up the best game plans. If the players don't perform up to their capabilities, and they don't perform. So part of it, obviously, is the players. But most of it, I would have to give credit to Nate McMillan, because if they would have kept Lloyd Pierce, would they have turned it around? I mean, judging by Pierce's track record, probably not.
I probably would say it's about 70% Nate McMillan, 30% Trae Young.
That's fair.
So I just think that Nate McMillan, he changed the whole atmosphere. He made everybody want to have a winner's mentality, and he also made good adjustments. And that's about it for that. I just think that Nate McMillan, he really did make all the right moves, and he made everybody embrace winning. So I just think that that's only going to help them from here on out. And we're going to see, what happens in the next few years with the Hawks. And all this tells me is that Nick McMillan shouldn't have been fired from the Pacers. So that's about it.
Yeah, and remember when one last note on that before we move on to the next question. When they fired him, they portrayed him as the bad guy, and that he wasn't getting the most out of his team. Look what's happened to the Pacers since then. I mean, they've had some dysfunction in the front office. They had a terrible coach that they did not like, and we'll see what happens now that they hired Rick Carlisle. But listen, man, Nate McMillan proved that, judging by what happened in Indiana after he left, and obviously what happened once he got to Atlanta, he wasn't the problem with the Pacers.
Right, yeah. It wasn't him. Now let's move on to the next question. Which conference which finals run was better between the Hawks or the Clippers?
The Clippers were impressive, and it was nice to see them finally break that seal and get one step closer to finally getting to an NBA Finals. It was a nice story, but when you have a team, this is again before Kawhi got hurt. When you have a team that has Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on it, say what you will about Paul, and obviously has Marcus Morris, Zubac, Reggie Jackson. When you have a team with the talent level the Clippers do, a lot of people would say when they're at full strength, you should get to an NBA Finals. You should be good enough to achieve that particular level of success. But again, look at the Hawks. It has to be the Hawks. They were, again, I know I sound like a broken record, and I know that people that will listen to this will be like, Mike, okay, we get it already. I'm sorry. But the Hawks were 6 games under 500, 14-20. And fired a coach, turned their season around, went in as a lower seed in every round, were never a favored seed, were never had home court, and finished off 2 series on the road. They finished my Knicks off at Madison Square Garden. They finished Philadelphia off on the road in Philadelphia into Game 7. And they took a superior Hawks team to 6 games and scared the heck out of them late in Game 6, cutting like a 20-point deficit down to 6 at one point. So considering what they were in February and what they are now in July, it's got to be the Hawks.
Yeah, I would say it's the Hawks as well. I feel like they were more exciting and more explosive. But I also feel like the Clippers, they also did have Kawhi a little bit as well. So, I just think that, Kawhi being there just a little bit, I definitely think that it kind of does hurt the comparison in between the Hawks and the Clippers. I think that the Clippers, they had a good run, but I would have to edge the coolness of the run and the flair of the run, and also the difficulty of the run to the Hawks. And plus then on top of that, they also beat a very good defensive team in the Sixers, a very good defensive team in the Knicks. So, you got to take all those things into account.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, the Clippers, they also should have beat the Mavs way faster. So they should have beat them in about 5 games, and I would say that they also should have took care of the Utah Jazz faster as well, at least about 4 or 5 games as well, but it just didn't happen. So I just think that the Hawks, they definitely have the better run. Now let's move on to the next question. Can embracing having a villainous mindset win a championship? I'll go first on that one. I believe it can. We've seen it happen a couple times. The Bad Boy Pistons, the 2017 Warriors, the 2012 Heat. I think that it can happen, and we might even see it next year with the Brooklyn Nets. We'll never know. It all depends on the injuries and people's mindset on that team. But I definitely believe that it could happen. So, and like I said, it's happened before. And the only thing is, like, can you and continue to win? Because once you lose, then it's then it's sayonara in terms of people's feelings about you or things like that. Or if you choke in a way, then basically it don't really look good as well. So that's my opinion on it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think even I go back to Michael in the 90s with the Bulls to an extent was the heel for a majority of those championships because, 91 when he first won it, people didn't have a problem. I think people wanted to see people hated Detroit as you just talked about. So people wanted to see Detroit out of there, and they got Detroit out of there in 91. So nobody had a problem with that. 92, I don't think people had a problem with that championship either. But 93 is when Michael kind of started to be a heel. That's when people kind of wanted to see. It's with every championship team like the Warriors. People rooted for the Warriors before they won their first championship. And then once they, won their first championship, then everybody wanted to see them be brought down. And it was the same thing with that too, to where 93 onward to the second three-peat, 98. Michael had his fair share of supporters, but a lot of people were rooting just as hard against Michael as they were for him, I should say. So, yeah, I think, and even Kobe had that. Kobe in 2001, 2002, 2009, even 2010, although a lot of people hated the Celtics then too, Kobe had a little bit of a villainous streak to him. So I think for sure that, listen, if you relish that and you embrace the moment and you live up to the moment, it doesn't hurt. You just got to show up.
Right. Yep. You just got to show up. If you don't, to me, I don't really think that Michael was ever viewed as a villain. I think that a lot of people liked him. So.
Well, New York, he was.
I think it's very tough to say. I think that.
New York, he was.
To New York fans.
Cleveland, he was.
So.
He tormented the Cavaliers. Indiana, he was definitely a villain in Indiana. Miami, he was a villain. Orlando, pretty much in the Eastern Conference. Any other city besides Chicago, if you were a playoff team in the 90s and a good one, like the Knicks were, like the Cavs were, like the Heat were, like the Pacers were, like the Magic were, you didn't care for Michael Jordan too much.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, I believe that everybody liked to watch him.
Oh, of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like everybody liked to watch him shoot. Everybody liked to watch him play. Everybody liked the style of play. I mean, like, look, there's some players in the league or whatever like what I'm trying to say is, like, there's some players in the league where they hit like a clutch shot or something like that. It's like, dag, he hit a shot, man. I don't like it. I can't stand this guy. That's what it was for Trae Young. You know what I'm saying? For Knicks fans and things like that. So, but when it comes to like somebody like Michael Jordan, it's just like, oh man, we'll just chalk it up to the game.
Yeah.
But my fault. But the thing is, like, when it comes to somebody like Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron James to a degree, when they embrace that role or whatever, and they come out on top, then there's nothing that nobody else can really say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh yeah, obviously Kobe. You can't forget about Kobe when he used to do that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 2009 series. So, but yeah, let's move on to the next question. Was the Trae Young? Okay, my fault. Was the trade between Luka Doncic and Trae Young, in hindsight, a blessing in disguise for both sides?
There's always that rare trade in sports where you can say, you know what, both teams won that trade. Both teams benefited substantially from that trade. Like, for example, the one that comes to mind for me, NBA trades-wise, is when the Lakers and the Grizzlies traded for Paul Gasol. The draft pick that the Lakers sent the Grizzlies away what turned into Marc Gasol, who turned into obviously one of the greatest players in franchise history for that Memphis Grizzlies squad, led them to the conference finals. That was a great trade because he turned into a superstar for Memphis and became the face of that team alongside Mike Conley and Zach Randolph. And then on the other end, Paul Gasol comes to the Lakers and they win 2 championships. So that trade is one of the best trades ever because it produced 2 future Hall of Famers. Everybody won in that deal. And so similarly speaking, I mean, it's a little early, but I mean, as long as both of these guys stay healthy, and I know there's a bit of dysfunction going on right now in Dallas, and anybody that's familiar with the NBA and watches it regularly and keeps up with it regularly, as we both do, knows that. But nonetheless, Luka's got the potential to be a generational talent with what he's accomplished at this point. And obviously, of course, Trae Young, same thing, as long as they both are able to stay on the right side of the health scale of things. So, you know, I like I said, I know it's early, but so far the returns for both teams have been good to where even though I believe Luka is a superior player, you can't really say either team lost the trade when you have a guy that just took you all the way to the conference finals. And Luka, even though he hasn't gotten out of the first round yet, there's no denying how good he is and how good he's going to continue to be.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would honestly give the slight edge to the Hawks because of how much further they got this year. I do know that the Mavs, they had a chance of beating the Clippers, but they really should have been able to take them down, but it just didn't happen. And I just think that they are playing in the Wild Wild West, and I'm not so sure if Luka's gonna automatically jump to that superstardom level just yet. I mean, he has the numbers, but in terms of playoff success, we haven't seen it. But I will give the slight edge to Trae Young as of right now. But yes, both teams won. Both sides won. Definitely, they both won. They both have generational talents on their side, and it's just a matter of playoff success right now, and team success as well. So yeah. So let's move on to the next question. Has Chris Middleton proven he can be trusted in clutch situations?
Not yet. I think it's, again, you don't want to get into this pattern of what have you done for me lately, because it's a stupid one to get into. Not you specifically, obviously I'm speaking generally, but he's had his moments. To be fair, and obviously Game 6 was a big moment for him. And even though he struggled, he struggled tremendously in Game 7 against Brooklyn, he had his moments where he hit big shots in that game too. But to say that he is all of a sudden someone that you can hand the ball off to in a big game, in a big spot, let's pump the brakes on that. He has to continue to do it. And if he establishes a healthy pattern of doing it, then yeah. But for now, he's a mystery. He's not an unclutch player, but he's not what you would automatically find as being a clutch player either.
I think he's too streaky.
That's the perfect word.
I think that he's extremely inconsistent.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that he's not going to show up. I do think that he does like to rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a little bit on both sides. But the thing is, if his shot's not falling, then basically it's over for that game. And to me, like we've seen a couple of games throughout this playoff run so far where if he just has maybe about 20 to 25 points, they'll win the game. But that's just how it is with somebody like Chris Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the type of game that you get. Hopefully that he shows up more in this series, and then we'll be able to solidify him as a clutch player. But to me, they have to depend on him because that's all they have to depend on when it comes to clutch situations, period. So
right. I would agree with that.
So yeah, so let's move on to the next question. Are the Bucks really better without Giannis?
No.
To me, I don't really think so. I really don't think so. I just think that they were able to get a couple wins without Giannis, and they were just able to play very good defense. But I believe that this helped the team in terms of the chemistry and things like that. Them knowing how to play without Giannis, I do think that it did help the team. So that when Giannis comes back, it'll be easier for them all to be able to play together in the finals. So yeah.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. You hit the nail on the head perfectly. That's an obvious one. It's like saying, for example, is Harley better without Davidson? It's the answer is no.
Right. All right. So let's move on to the next one. Is Brook Lopez still a top 7 center in the NBA when he decides to be?
That is New Jersey / Brooklyn Nets legend, Brooke Lopez, to you, sir. Brooke, it's funny because somebody brought this up on a great podcast from Barstool Sports called Pardon My Take, is that Brooke, when you look at him, think about the modern NBA center now and what they're able to do. Like when you and I were talking about the NBA Hall of Fame the last time we did a crossover, we talked about how, excuse me again, I apologize, that, Chris Bosh and Arvydas Sabonis were big men that really modernized and were ahead of their time in terms of what today's big man is. He can shoot threes, he can post up, Brooke can do that, but he's so like, I don't want to say he's not athletic. He's not unathletic, but he looks goofy. Like he looks like a guy that really, he's 7 foot tall and has played a long time in the NBA. He's not particularly smooth with his footwork. I mean, nothing about his game is smooth, but the guy gets the job done. When he's evolved his game to where he shoots threes at a good clip, he can still dominate on the inside. He can still play pretty solid defense and beat you on the boards. I think he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. In 2019, I believe he was, when they lost to the Raptors in the conference finals. So this is a guy who I feel like he's underrated. And I'm not just saying that because now the spotlight's on him since they're in the NBA finals, but he has quietly been productive really all of his career. You just didn't see it because the majority of the time that he was putting up these numbers, the teams he were on were awful. The Nets of the late 2000s into the early 2010s were atrocious. They were like 70 lost teams. They were horrid. And obviously in Brooklyn, there were a couple years when they were good, but then they went right back to being crappy. Then he was with the Lakers. This was before LeBron and AD got there, and they were bad in that 1 year he was with the Lakers. So he's never really had the chance to really display just how good he is and remind people on a large scale just how good he is up until his time with Milwaukee, which has been now 3 seasons. So I don't think he ever stopped being a top 7 center in the NBA. I just think people are being reminded of how good he is. And it's hard to believe because he's been in the league for so long now. This is his 13th season. Marvin, he's only 33 years old. I thought he was like 36, 37. He's 33. He's still got more than enough gas left in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, sure, he could definitely carry them in the finals. Sure, he could definitely play.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, his defense sometimes is lag when it comes to mid-range jump shots. So I can't really give him so much credit. But the thing is that he can still play. He can definitely still shoot. He can shoot the basketball very well. He has better form than Giannis. And the thing is he has relatively decent post moves, and yes, he definitely can be a disruptor in the lane, which is definitely important. He could definitely get timely blocks like he did against Kevin Durant. So, we are being reminded of how good that he is. But the thing is that he also has not really shown it because he has not been aggressive due to him playing with Giannis. And sometimes Giannis, he has to play that dominant Shaq role. So that's just how he plays in general. So that's just what it is for Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez, he kind of had to dial it back because of Giannis. So that's just what it is. But yeah, we are being reminded, and I definitely do think that he is still a top 7 center in this league. So yeah. So let's move on to the next question. The question is, okay, is this series over faster if PJ Tucker averaged at least 7 to 8 points? To me, I definitely believe so.
Yeah, PJ
Tucker, if he just hit just like way more than just a couple threes, this series is done way faster. Like it's over 5 games.
Probably because PJ Tucker, he hit the dagger in game 6. It was 113-106 when he got the ball in the corner. I said it out loud when he hit the shot. I said, dagger, ball game. That's it. That sealed the deal. And
right,
yeah. He's a guy that does his role. It kind of reminds me of Rodman. I'm not saying he's a Rodman level player, but Rodman knew what his role was, which was I'm here to play defense. I'm here to get rebounds. Anything else other than that is not my job. Leave that to the other guys. Same thing with PJ Tucker. He has that mindset and that my role is I'm a defender. Yeah, I'll hit a couple shots here and there, but primarily I'm a defender and I'm a guy that handles the boards down low. My job is to contain the threes and the fours, the small forwards and the power forwards, and the occasional center. And anything beyond that is not my job. That's the job of the next man. But, it would be nice, especially with what I was saying just now about what the modern big man is in relation to when we were discussing Brook Lopez, to see him do more. And yeah, he doesn't even need to average double digits. I mean, he does enough on the defensive end at 7, 8 points. Yeah, it might have been over in 5.
Right. Yeah, 7, 8 points. I mean, they probably could have taken game 1. If he would have just.
And if Giannis is healthy, maybe it would have been a sweep.
Exactly, right? So that's what I'm saying. I can't say if he's with Tucker when he has the basketball. He just, I mean, for me, if my job is to only hit corner threes, it's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
All right. If my job is to only hit a corner 3, that's all you have to do. It's over. Okay. I'm hitting all the clutch shots. I do not miss.
Never.
I do not miss. So let's go over to the next one. Are the Bucks in the conference finals next year?
I think I do want to see what Brooklyn does fully healthy. There are obviously I think the Pacers will be a lot better next year, coached by Rick Carlisle as opposed to this year. The Hornets are building. They're not an elite contender yet. Obviously, my point is a lot of these teams are building towards something. We'll see what the Celtics do. We'll see what the Knicks do. The Sixers, say what you will about them. I know it's fun to slander them right now, and it is. Slander's hitting, but they're still a very good team to be on the lookout for. Toronto. I wonder what Toronto's going to do. I think Toronto can. I don't really think the season was a true reflection of what they are as a team. I think there was a lot of different factors that made them on not a contender this year, mainly the fact that they never played in their home country, and they got hit hard by the virus, unfortunately. So it depends. I mean, I don't want to say yes. I think I'm going to have to say no, not because I disrespect the Bucks, and I think they're very good, and certainly it wouldn't surprise me, but the conference is too up in the air right now. And obviously Brooklyn and Philadelphia are at the top of that list for me to say definitively, yeah, they'll be back. It remains to be seen unless these teams have a serious regression. Next year, if everybody's healthy and they're on the normal schedule again, which they're going to be for the 2021-22 NBA season, everything's going to be starting and including at the time it's supposed to again. They're in for a dogfight. I
think they will. I think all they just have to do is avoid Brooklyn in the seeding. That's it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That would help.
So I think this team is talented enough. I mean, they are missing DiVincenzo. Mm-hmm. So I do think that they keep this core together and they should be able to be back. So to me, I think the Sixers are too young and they're not ready yet. So yeah, I could definitely see Giannis having a dominant series against them. So, but yeah, let's go over to the next one. Is Coach Bud a lucky coach, or is he just inconsistent?
Yes, CTE. Because I didn't really hold it against him when he was coaching Atlanta and they were getting decimated by LeBron because it's LeBron, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with Jordan. You just chalk it up to the game. Obviously LeBron's LeBron, so it doesn't matter what kind of team you have. I mean, we saw the Bulls got knocked off. The Raptors, like almost every year, got knocked off. And the Hawks were no different. But then he got to Milwaukee. I'm like, okay, you know what? The first year I gave him a pass because the Bucks had never been that deep in the playoffs before, and that was their first time being in a conference finals, and they were going up against a proven commodity in Kawhi Leonard, and that team had a lot of playoff experience, even though they never really had a lot of success in terms of being able to beat Cleveland. I mean, that team, Kyle Lowry had been in the conference finals before. A lot of those guys were on that 2016 team that was in the conference finals. So that year I gave him a pass because, again, and you have a 2-time finals MVP that you're facing. So But then 2020, they should have beaten the Heat. They lost to the Heat. And this year, I mean, there were times, I mean, game 7, he had Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton on the floor, kept feeding them the ball despite the fact that they were bricking. He's calling the kind of plays for Giannis I didn't understand, because you're at one point, James Harden, who was playing on one hamstring, is guarding Giannis. It's like, and we talked about it off the air, dude, he has one leg. And you're like 7 feet tall, and you have these. They don't call you the Greek freak for nothing. Your body is like one of a kind. Go and back him down and dunk on him. And so that kind of strategy is not Coach Budenholzer's or Budenholzer, however you pronounce it. It's not a strong suit. So I mean, sometimes they're just saying sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. I think Coach Budenholzer is definitely a very fortunate guy. I mean, he's some of it he gets right, but majority of the time, I feel like they're winning these games almost in spite of him, as opposed to because of him, which is not a good sign.
Right. Yeah. I believe that if they lose to if they would have lost to the Nets, Coach Bud, he's out of there the second that he takes a step to the press conference. So
somebody made a joke. They win the NBA championship.
The second he walks out the door. Right. Yeah. Right. So I can definitely see that happening. I definitely would have saw that happening if they would have lost that series, but it didn't happen. I do think that he is lucky. So that's just how I feel about it. Now, if the way that he would prove me wrong is by getting to a conference finals and pushing it to 7 games next year. If he does that, then he's not really lucky.
Right.
So let's move on to the next one. Okay, nope. It's over for this. It's over for the questions on the conference finals between the Eastern Conference. Now let's dive into the finals preview between the Suns versus the Bucks. Let's give our reactions to the matchup. I'm going to start with mine. I think this series is going to be a very good one and very entertaining. I do think that it's very possible that that we may not get Giannis back, which will not be good. And if that happens, then I just don't really believe that. I don't really believe that this series is really, going to be viewed as much as people, would want to view it. But I just think that I just believe that it should be entertaining, and I do think that this is a good win for the small market teams, and I think that Chris Paul is going to try his best to win, and I believe that PJ Tucker is definitely going to do his best to be a pest and bother Chris Paul, kind of like Patrick Beverly tried to. And I just think it's going to be a very cool and fun series to watch. I definitely think it's going to have more viewers than last year's finals. So that's about it with that.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, my thoughts earlier are what I would say here. It's a victory for the small market. It's a victory for the underdog. You don't have a super team here. I think everybody was tired of super teams. And so you have 2 teams that were organically built. The Suns, although, yes, Chris Paul had a huge hand in why they're here, the Suns are led by primarily Devin Booker, who's a homegrown talent. The Bucks are led by primarily Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's a homegrown talent. And you could basically say the same thing about Chris Middleton, because Chris Middleton only played 1 year in Detroit. That was his rookie year, and they traded him to Milwaukee. So he's pretty much been a Buck his entire career, except for his first year. So you could say he's a homegrown talent pretty much as well. So, yeah, I mean, right. This finals is proof that if you want to build a true championship team, yes, part of it is free agency. Yes, part of it is trades. I mean, some people make the argument that, no, you don't need that. And, as far as top tier players, of course you need that. So, yes, it is partly based on that. To say otherwise is foolish because you're rejecting proven success, proven winners. But the main part of what makes or doesn't make a championship team is how you draft. You have to draft well. And when you draft well, 9 times out of 10, these are the dividends that drafting well pays.
Right. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Okay, now let's dive into the questions. Let's try and speed it up.
Mm-hmm.
So, finals prediction and who wins the finals MVP. So I'm gonna go with the Suns to win this series. In my head, in my heart, I want the Milwaukee Bucks to win this series. So I'm gonna have Devin Booker as the Finals MVP. So go ahead, Mike.
I'm gonna say Suns in 7, and just to piss you off, Chris Paul Finals MVP.
Hey, if it happens, it happens. If it happens, it happens.
It might.
We
Who knows? We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see.
Right. So let's get into the question. Okay. So the next question: who has the better coaching edge? I'm gonna have to go with, obviously, Monty Williams. It's not even really close. I think he makes great adjustments out of timeout. He always is able to score. So I'm gonna have to give it to Monty Williams, of course. So
yeah, people forget that Monty has.
I like the way they run their offense. And they have. I mean, I would give Coach Budenholzer the edge over experience, but as far as like, making adjustments and making all the right plays, I'm gonna have to give it to Monty Williams. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I would agree. Monty's been coaching a long time too. A lot of people forget Monty. This isn't his first rodeo. He's coached for many, many years. He coached Chris Paul in New Orleans. So yeah, an experience. Maybe he doesn't have as much as Coach Budenholzer, but he definitely has his fair share. He's no spring chicken, Monty Williams. So I would have to give it to Monty too.
Okay. Next question. If Giannis is out for the entire series, is this finals an asterisk?
You can't control. I'm going to say no, because you can't control what happens. If you're a team, you just focus on what you can do and what you can control. You can't control who's hurt on the other side and who isn't. So it's not the Suns' fault. Not that I'm saying you're suggesting that, but if Giannis is not able to play this series, which I don't think he'll miss the series, I think he'll tough it out and play through it. This is his first chance at a ring. It might be his only chance. He never knows. He doesn't know if he'll get back to this point again. So I think he'll play. Consequences long term with that injury to his knee be damned. But if he weren't to play for whatever reason, I mean, I don't think that's the Suns' fault. They have to still play. The players still have to perform. So if they were to win this, I think if people were going to try to take it away from that, that's just trolls online looking for attention, and obviously talking heads in the media that really don't know really don't have much of a clue of what they're talking about to begin with. So no, I would say no.
I'm gonna have to be on the opposite of this one. I just think that if Giannis goes out again in this series and he does not play for the rest of it, I do think it's an asterisk because of the amount of injuries that we've seen in the playoffs. Like, we've never seen this many injuries in the playoffs. I can understand if it's regular season leading up to the playoffs, but it's been a lot of injuries that's happened. So I can't really say that we could fully give the Suns all this credit. Now the only way that we could, give them this credit is if they get to a finals next year. They will have to prove it to us again. Now, if they do that, then this season is not an asterisk. They got to do it again. Kind of like when the Warriors in 2015, they were like saying, like, everybody was saying, like, this season is an asterisk, and then they go 73-9, and then they get to a finals. They solidified the season before by doing that. And now the Suns or whatever, if they're out first or second round the next year, then it's asterisk, basically. But that all depends on if Giannis plays throughout the whole entire series and he just stays fine and he does not get hurt. But if Giannis goes out because of the knee injury and he doesn't play again, then it's asterisk for me.
Yeah, I will. Although I disagree, I do understand why you would say that. It's very well explained.
Okay. Now let's go with the next one. Who has a more consistent bench? I'm gonna have to go with the Suns on this one. I just think that they have, too many players who will show up and hit shots, like Cam Johnson and the other Cam, and they also got
Campaign.
Campaign. So I mean, like, they have a very consistent bench. So I do believe that the Bucks, they have some Rough Riders on their team, like Portis, and they also have somebody else I'm trying to remember, but they have some players on their teams that can Jeff Teague, he could play a crucial role, but I'm gonna have to give the edge to the Suns.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think their bench is one of the best, and has proven it time and time again this postseason. Campaign particularly has had tremendous performances. So I think I would have to give the edge to Phoenix as well.
Yeah, who has the better defense? I'm gonna have to give that to the Bucks on this one.
Me too.
I think the fact that they have PJ Tucker, they have Drew Holiday, who definitely has shown up. Now the only thing that Drew Holiday needs to do, he needs to make Chris Paul work on defense himself. If he makes him work, then that's like playing defense, because you're tiring out Chris Paul, you're making his legs go. But as far as defense, they have way too many good defenders on the Bucks, so that's why I believe the Bucks have a better defense. So, and plus, who's Devin Booker locking up? He's not locking up anybody.
Yeah,
he's basically food. Right, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So I think that Chris Middleton is going to have a field day over Devin Booker, and I could see Chris Middleton actually getting in the way of or being annoying to Devin Booker because of his long arms. And also I could see PJ Tucker, playing that pest role on Devin Booker, just like he did with KD. Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I think that the Bucks have a better defense. So.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree. And when it comes to Devin Booker's defense, it's kind of like that meme. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy. So.
Right. Right. So let's go with the next one. How low will the viewership be pertaining to this finals based on the injuries?
I don't even think it's the injuries. I just think, you have the casuals who I can't stand the casuals because, it's just, they only watch for the stars and whatever, fine. Like, I know the hardcore NBA fan is going, like you and I will watch it because we would watch regardless. If it was the Magic and the Grizzlies in the finals, I think we will watch it. But Bucks Suns, I mean, I think it's going to be low, not as low as last year, but it's still going to be pretty low, not because of just the casuals, just because everything's still kind of out of whack still. Like, you have everything out of order in the sense of the scheduling. The finals are in July, and that's normally not a thing that happens. Last year, they were in October. You have that situation in play. The fact that, you still, even though some arenas have bigger crowds than others, there's still some arenas that still don't have 100% capacity in their stadium still because of the pandemic. So that kind of plays a role in it too. And plus, you saw this last year. The finals last year was a pretty good matchup between a recognizable name in Jimmy Butler and a recognizable franchise in Miami Heat. And obviously one of the biggest names, not just in basketball, but in the world, in LeBron James in the finals. And the viewership was low. Why? Because not only was it out of order having taken place in October when football and baseball are going on, but because people had bigger things to worry about. I mean, we were 7 months into the pandemic. People's minds were elsewhere. I think that's still the case. A year and some change later, after the pandemic first got here in March of last year, people's minds are just elsewhere. I think viewership is not really going to recover until probably next playoffs. And once everything's back on normal schedule again, well, then that's when you'll see viewership rise back up. But I think will it be as low as 2020? No, I think anything is better than 2020. 2020 was like the worst ratings ever, but it won't be as popular either. And I think that's through no fault of the Bucks and the Suns.
Yeah, I could see this series doing more than last year's. The only reason why last year was so bad was because of the political situation that everybody was trying to be involved in, which wasn't really needed for sports in general. So that's just my opinion on it. But it's obvious that it shows in the stats between the 2020 between the 2020 NBA Finals and the 1998 Finals. It's a total difference. And then on top of that, more people watch The Last Dance than they did the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? It's too much people trying to be political in the NBA. I just want to watch basketball, and why wouldn't the viewer want to just watch basketball? You know what I'm saying? So as for the viewership, I think it's going to be more. Do I think it's going to be a lot? No, I don't, because of it being two small market teams, not enough superstars, and that's just what it is. If Giannis was a Steph Curry or a KD, in terms of excitement, then yes, we could definitely see. We could definitely see a whole bunch of people wanting to view it. But to me, the most exciting player in this series is Devin Booker. So yeah, that's just the way it is. And I believe there's going to be more viewership, but not as bad as last year. And as far as the next year, yes, obviously, yeah, we're going to see more people viewing the finals. Now let's move on to the next question. Who is the X factor for these teams?
Well, if Giannis plays, it's Giannis. If really, I think this one can be summed up pretty easily. If Giannis plays, it's Giannis for Milwaukee. And obviously on the Phoenix side of things, yes, Chris Paul is important, but I think Devin Booker is more important. So I would have to say it's the two homegrown studs. It would be Booker for Phoenix, and it would be Giannis Antetokounmpo for Milwaukee.
I think the X factor for Phoenix is Cameron Payne. I think
really, that's interesting.
I think him coming off the bench and him trying to get key buckets and things like that. I think that he's the X factor. And as for the Bucks, I think that it's honestly Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton's the X factor. He has to hit shots. So now let's get into the next question.
Mm-hmm.
How does it look if Chris Middleton wins Finals MVP and not Giannis? And let's do the same for Chris Paul with Devin Booker. So I think that if Chris Middleton wins the MVP and not Giannis, I'm not so sure that looks good for Giannis, honestly. I really don't. I don't think it looks good if Giannis doesn't win the MVP. I do think that, we expect for Giannis to be dominant. But I can see why he wouldn't really win the MVP because of him being injured. But as far as Chris Middleton, he would have to have a really great series in order for him to win. So, I can definitely see him being consistent at least one or two games. But as for Giannis, he has to be consistent throughout the entire series. So, but as for Chris Paul, I just think that, is him just winning one championship. I think that just only puts him over Steve Nash. But if he wins the Finals MVP, then I might need to put him next to Chauncey Billups, or maybe a little bit over Chauncey Billups. You know what I'm saying? So that'll be about it. I might even need to put him over John Stockton. So that's how I would view it. But If he doesn't win it and it's just Devin Booker, then basically then it just seems like he just came along for the ride with the talent or whatever. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, I not only had this. If Giannis wins a ring, what does he care? I mean, yeah, obviously, Finals MVP will be debated, but at the end of the day, the man has a ring. So as long as he has a championship ring, I think that's the only thing that really matters to him. Because he's a very selfless player. He doesn't really care about individual accolades. He's happy to win them. You saw how emotional he was when he won the MVP. But it's not something that defines him. If he doesn't win it, he's not going to throw a big fuss about it, just as long as he gets to have a championship parade in Milwaukee.
Yeah. And for Devin Booker?
Devin Booker, I mean, yeah, same thing. I think Devin Booker, I think he's kind of the same way. I think what matters to him more is
for Chris Paul. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I do think that Devin Booker does care about that Finals MVP though.
I think they all do to a degree, but the main motivation is the ring. Because whatever, I mean, if you win the Finals MVP, great. People will remember that, but people will also remember, because banners hang forever. People remember the ring. Because what's the first thing that people say about any great player that's won championships? They don't say, "Oh, they don't first say he was a Finals MVP." That comes second. The first thing is he's a champion. And that's what matters most at the end of the day.
Right. So could we see Chris Middleton have an explosion? I could see him having maybe about a 1 or 2 game explosion, but as far as in terms of winning the series explosion, I don't think that he could be consistent in terms of an explosion. I could definitely see him having an explosion few games or quarters, but not to win, not to necessarily have a consistent series in terms of exploding.
Well, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. He's streaky, as we talked about earlier. He's hit or miss. He'll have his games, he'll have his moments, but I'd be shocked if he put it together over the course of a 6 or 7 game series. Could he have a game where he drops 40 out of nowhere? Yeah. I mean, he did that. He didn't drop 40, I don't think, in the conference finals, but he had a game where he took over and put the Hawks away. And I think that was game 5? I believe it was game 5 at home. So, yeah, I mean, when Chris Middleton, somebody tweeted this, and it's true. Shout out to Buzzy. When Chris Middleton decides to play like a max player, the game's over. There's no stopping him. He's in his bag. So, yeah, he could explode for sure. I mean, nothing's out of the realm of possibility with him. It's just I don't trust him just because of his streaky nature.
All right. And a couple more questions before the last one. Is the series victory based on is this series victory based on who makes the most threes?
Partly. I want to go first here. Partly. But I think there's something forgotten here. My buddy Otis likes to say, nobody plays defense anymore. Well, at this time of year, defense matters because, like it or hate it, those who are good defenders, and even maybe those who are less than stellar defenders, save their energy for defense for this time of year. And so, that said, I would gather that defense will be the deciding thing. It was the deciding thing for the Bucks. The Bucks are one of the best defensive teams in the league. The Suns have played defense when they needed to. So I would say that's more the deciding thing. With threes, yeah, listen, the name of the game is threes, but notice, is Chris Paul the Suns' best player? No, Devin Booker is, but Chris Paul doesn't live or die by three. A lot of the time when he kills you, he's killing you from mid-range. He'll hit his fair share, but he's killing you from mid-range more so than he is from the three-point line. Giannis, I mean, forget it. Giannis can't shoot free throws, let alone shoot three. I mean, Giannis is killing you from the same thing from inside. So it'll play a role. You got to hit them. Of course, they're very important. But will it define this series? No, I think it'll be the defense and it'll be the mid-range game.
Every series in the NBA has been decided by actually the mid-range shot. So, I mean, you could go back for a very long time. Let's say Michael Jordan, KD, Harrison Barnes and Steph, Kawhi Leonard, Kobe. Everybody had a mid-range jump shot. I mean, I'm not going to go to the centers, but but you know what I mean. For the most part, I mean, even Hakeem Olajuwon had like the 15 to 7 foot jump shot. So D Wade, and I'm just going down the list. Clyde Drexler.
Hmm.
So I do think that this series is based more on who makes more consistent mid-range jump shots. So whoever does that, they win the series, and I could also see it, having something to do with threes as well. But I do think the mid range is still important, and it still wins championships. So that's how I view it.
Yeah.
Now let's go on to the final question. Will DeAndre Ayton be the deciding factor for the Suns?
Not the deciding factor, but definitely one of the deciding factors, because obviously the Suns and the big man department, all due respect to Brook Lopez, DeAndre is a better center talent-wise, not resume-wise. Obviously, Brook's done more, but he's a better center talent-wise than Brook Lopez, and he's really taken a big leap this year. So Ayton's huge. I mean, you saw how big he was in the Clippers series. He had a great series against the Clippers. I mean, he killed. I get Zubac got hurt, but even before Zubac went down, he was killing the Clippers. So, and he killed the Nuggets in the second round too. I mean, he was dominant in that series. He was very dominant as well in the Lakers series. And, I think he'll play a big role in this series too. I mean, if the Suns are going to have a chance to really bring this one home, they got to take advantage of the edges that they do have. And I think that for the most part, these teams are pretty evenly matched. That's the one thing that I can see between these two teams that the Suns have a clear advantage in, and that's the big man department. So if DeAndre shows up, it's the series tilts in heavy favor of the Phoenix Suns. So I would have to say, I think he's totally a deciding factor, not the main one, but definitely one of the top three deciding factors. The other two being, how does Chris Paul perform for Phoenix, that is, I'm saying, and how does Devin Booker perform?
I would say that he's extremely important. I would say that he's maybe even more important than Chris Paul, because he has to be able to be dominant on the defense and offense, man. Way more than Chris Paul. I think that the lobs definitely do help with DeAndre Ayton's game, and the fact that he's very relentless on the boards. I feel like he's definitely, like, if he does not show up in the series, the Bucks will win this series, and the fact that he went up against two players who are non-athletic. Zubac is not athletic, and neither is Jokic. Jokic, he has not lost enough weight in order to have that level of athleticism, nor does he necessarily have the vertical jump either. So I would say that Brook Lopez, he's a far better defender than those two players in general. So I do think that he will have his hands full, but I do think that he's also way more talented than Brook Lopez is. So I can see him having a field day as well, which is why I'm picking the Suns. So that's it on the conference finals review and the finals preview. There will be a review on the finals the following week on my own podcast. Have a great time watching the finals and a great week as well. Don't forget to follow my podcast Instagram account called Miles Ahead Pod. That's MILES Ahead Pod. And remember, let's not be inches, feet, meters, nor yards. Let's be miles ahead.
On my
end, Mike, if you would like to make your outro.
Thank you, Marvin. I just want to say thank you for coming back on again. I thank you for doing this crossover. It's always fun when we get together. If you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me at Mike in New Haven. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'm Mike Colón there. Just type in Mike Colón, MIC''D, and I'll pop right up. If you want to connect with me, Instagram, original_MC1, YouTube, MC's audio, MC''S audio. If you want to reach me, Yeah, on the sports business line, I have two different business lines. The sports one is 917-727-0891. Should you have a sports related guest that you'd like to get on my show, or if you're someone in the sports industry and you'd like to come on, 917-727-0891. My sports email is Colón on sports, COLON on sports @gmail.com. Non-business line, any other guest in the news world, law enforcement, fire service. If you want to reach me, the Colón report @gmail.com, THECOLON report @gmail.com. Business line for non-sports related inquiries, 917-781-6189. So if you can hit me up there, should you want to, that's the one that you can reach me at on that line. And the other one I mentioned for sports related inquiries relating to this the show. Coming up on the Mike Naven podcast, and what will be episode 83, because this finals preview and Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Finals review will be episodes 81, 82, because I'll be splitting them up into two parts, as I usually do. Coming up tomorrow for episode 83, we continue the miniseries Tales from the Boom Room, profiles of the NYPD's arson, explosion, and bomb squad, retired NYPD bomb squad detective, Medal of Valor recipient, and retired Air Force Special Agent Dan McNally will join me for volume 7 of the Tales from the Boom Room miniseries. Dan had a great career with the NYPD, was in the bomb squad for 17 years from 1987 to 2004, and received the Medal of Valor for his heroic efforts at the World Trade Center on 9/11. So he'll be joining me tomorrow to talk about his great career. First of 2 episodes featuring him. More on that when I talk with Dan tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that when that drops. In the meantime, folks, stay well, stay hydrated, because it's a hot summer. And on behalf of Marvin McIntyre, I am Mike Colón, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.